Paltrocast. Or aside from doing press where they ask you the same questions over and over and over again, good day for you so far?
Always, fortunately, I'm one of those guys that never tires of talking about himself. I guess they call those people in show business.
Well said. And I really enjoyed your documentary. Now, I couldn't tell, when did you start filming it? Like 10, 12 years ago?
Well, it's pieces from all over, but Ian, my radio partner, Ian Carr is the owner and creator of IKA Collective. And our radio show ended, I think, in 2015. And a couple of years after that, he kind of started on this, but it has a full-time business and a full-time production company. But it was going fine. But of course, it was almost completely ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Are we recording right now?
We're recording right now, but we can edit out whatever you want.
Oh, no. I because I didn't want to waste anything that I thought was good.
No.
We were doing this, and Artie Lang was scheduled to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Ian never got a chance to interview him. I'm sorry. And then Artie had some problems and wound up in the hospital and whatever.
Yeah.
But then the pandemic hit. Even though the documentary was ready to go, the pandemic hit. That slowed up everything. And then there was some involvement with Netflix, and then Netflix fell apart. And there was so much time that Artie had gotten out of rehab and had cleaned up, and we got him for the documentary. And it took so much time that it circled around. So he's in it, and he's great in it. So it's
Yep.
taken a while to be pieced together, but it's fun because it's got a nice arc to it, I think,
I think so as well. And I think you might actually have the last interview that anyone's seen of Artie, because obviously he's been private the past couple of years.
Yeah, he's good. I'm in touch with him, and he's doing fine. He's just laying low and being smart. It is such a kick to have this thing finally coming out. And I've been telling all the people that have talked to me, I said, I really think we might get a lot of viewers, because even people that don't like me are gonna, there's a lot of people in the Stern Show that were angry at me or for whatever, that are gonna watch this just so they can get mad at me all over. And unfortunately, I think they're gonna be very disappointed, and they're gonna wind up liking me, which is gonna probably make them crazier than ever, but we'll see what happens,
Yeah. Not to spoiling anything, but towards the end of the film, you say, more or less, I'm paraphrasing, that I get along with everybody from my past. It's just those couple of people from the Stern Show that opted not to be in this documentary, and them who I'm not talking to, and everybody else. And so we see from throughout the years, we saw the off-hour rockers people. There's your ex-wife. There's everybody but those 3 or 4 people from the Stern Show.
And I don't have a bad relationship with them. They just did not choose to partake. It's a long story. Let it tell itself. But
Sure.
it's and it all trickles down. Like if Howard had agreed to be in it, they all would have been in it. But it's fine. It is what it is.
But as the film shows, again, without spoiling too much, there's so many elements to your comedy career that Howard Stern's only one part of it. So I don't think that the average person knew that Rick Dees played a role, that Rodney played a role. And plus, the documentary doesn't even talk about, was it called the Long Island 7?
Yeah, the Magnificent Seven. There was so much that, we never got near my rock band from college, or my rock band through the whole 70s, before I quit music. There's a lot of, I don't know how interesting they are, but there's so many ridiculous facets to my stupid life. It's just fun,
The gymnastics footage, that's also another thing that I didn't know, not to spoil too much there, but I'm surprised you actually had footage of that.
The reason I wanted that to be in there is because it's so absurd.
Yes.
That I have 8mm home movie footage. And it was a kid that I knew from my whole life, who was a couple of years younger, that was on the gymnastic team, and his father loved me, and he was there to shoot Walter Campagna, and it's a pain in the ass, because those things only had 3-minute cartridges. So
Yeah.
after 3 minutes, you had to put in a whole new film and thread it and everything. And he got like a full minute. I mean, it's absurd that I have that, you know, and it's absurd that I found out that Walter had it. He's also got my 8th grade graduation, you know, but that would have been reaching back a little too far. But holy mackerel, there's a lot of fun stuff in there. A lot of fun. They never hit on, I was a pole vaulter and all kinds of ridiculous stuff in my life, you know.
My favorite thing, again, broken record here, not to spoiling anything too much right there, but the actual footage of you handing Howard the paper with the joke on it. I don't think that most people have actually seen the visual of that before.
It's so weird that we have that. It was a very well kept secret, and you know, depending on who you talk to, you know, oh, it was never kept a secret. It was a very well. There's still people to this day. I'm shocked by the people that don't know that. I mean, show business people, people in the industry, people in television, because I was a guy that sat there and laughed at everything, and they broke my chops and gave me a hard time. So my character on the show was almost enough to warrant me being there. Yeah. So nobody had any idea that I was, you know, a good part of the guts of the operation, because I didn't need to be, you know. It's like, what if you found out Curly was the director of the Three Stooges? You know, like, whoa, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where you find out that the straight man in most comedy duos was the person who's actually writing all the jokes. That was the actual funny one.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. It's gonna be a real eye opener. And you know, and there's, of course, a lot of people that say that hear that was going on. They're like, oh, you know, that's bull that Jackie spreads around, and Jackie's people spread, and the proof is in the pudding, you know. So it's interesting.
And this is so much new information. Now, I thought I knew everything about you after, I forget his name, but you, John, and Billy did those sit-down interviews that came out during the pandemic. And once I saw that, I thought, okay, I officially know Jackie's whole story. And again, watching this documentary, I feel like I don't. And I feel like there's still hours that would have been cut out from this. So will there eventually be a DVD or a Blu-ray or something with the leftovers?
What it was when I, you know, it's so funny because when you're a comedian or when you're writing, like I wrote my autobiography and I wrote enough for 2 books, and it's one of those things where 1 minute you look at it and everything is interesting, and the next time you look at it, like, who the hell do you think you are? Who cares about you? You know, and you go back and forth. But in my mind, there was so much that I was hoping we were going to take this, and it's not that this isn't going to happen. I'm just not sure. I want to take it and show it in small theaters or comedy clubs or little nightclubs, and show the documentary, and then do a Q&A each time, and videotape the Q&A, because the Q&A is going to be another, it's that, like you're saying, that's the next part of the documentary, because the devil's in the details. So when they ask a question about why did that happen and why did that happen, and I'm so long-winded that we'll wind up with, you know, in my mind, we got a serial cable series, you know, like, not that anybody's interested, but there is so much, and there's so many incredible stories. I do a podcast called Stand Up Memories, and me and my partner, Peter Bales, we did 25 shows before we had a guest, because we had so many tales to share, and it's so fun to revisit, and it's all good fun. And you know, a lot of people gave me a hard time because I didn't think I was rough enough on Howard in my autobiography. And I got no axe to grind. You know, all I do is tell the truth. If the truth ruffles a few feathers, I don't really care. You know, because interviewers would ask me questions. Like lately, I'll do an interview and somebody will say, but that's what you said 20 years ago. Well, that's because that's what happened. You know, you don't have to, you know, Mark Twain said, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. You know, well, it's interesting.
I have, and this is a compliment. I promise this is going to whip around to a compliment, despite how it starts. So there's one thing that I wish that you cut out of this documentary, and that's the part about the salary disputes from Stern, that era, where John says something along the lines of, I told Jackie if he did this for 5 more years, he would not have to work again a day in his life. And now he's out there because he still has to do that. And putting aside how much money you've saved or how well you've done, I think that even if you were financially independent at whatever point, you would still be doing this. The footage that it cuts to, you clearly still have that love of getting up in front of an audience and doing this.
I can't tell you how in a line you are. I actually, they said there had to be some pushback from somebody, so they had to include that pushback from John. He never said that to me. He might have thought that, or maybe people thought that, that a lot of people thought I was crazy for whatever reason. But I've said that a million times. If I had $1 billion, I'm sure,
yeah,
until I can't do it anymore, I'm going to get up there, or else I'm going to stay home and tell the jokes to my girlfriend until she stabs me. I would keep doing it. So
yeah,
you're right. And, nothing against John, and I'm, what? And for all I know, maybe he did say that to me. I don't know. He stutters. Who understands what he's saying? I don't know.
Well, because of the years that you were on Howard Stern, there's certain guests who are mainstays because in that era, Howard couldn't get A-list people. So in other words, it was who embraced Howard, therefore they would come back again and again and again. And there's certain people that I feel like the Howard Stern show is the only people that got the good interviews out of them. Like, for example, David Lee Roth. In every David Lee Roth interview, he plows over the interviewer. And Howard's the one person who got him to shut up. Did you?
Right. I could rein him in and get a hold of him. That's absolutely true.
So did you play a role in giving Howard any of those questions or zings, or did you get the off-camera quiet, Dave?
Oh, no. We would write questions in advance for the interviews. But for the most part, those questions, we were writing those questions on the fly as we went along. I have a lot of notes. In fact, a couple from David Lee Roth. I have notes that after the end of the show, I would always save. I have every note I ever wrote for him. That's a whole nother documentary.
We may or may not see that in the documentary.
I mean, every note for 15 years. And there was a certain amount of notes that the funniest thing that he said to the guy that I wrote that day, I would have Steve Grillo go and get the guy to sign it. So I have like 120 signed notes that were actually insults or jokes that Howard made at the guest's expense. And you could not come up with the list of people. Adam West, Tiny Tim, John Wayne Bobbitt, Barbara Streisand's sister, Al Michaels, David Lee Roth, people just so at random, and it's just so much fun. Geraldo, all these great, Roger Daltrey, and people would never be assembled anywhere, and yeah, we'd be writing the notes and the questions on the fly absolutely every time. Me and Fred,
Right. There were rumors that you and Fred wrote the questions for John when he asked them and put the mic in people's faces. Is that true?
Oh, I can't believe that's a rumor because I thought everybody knew that, Like well, I take great pride in asking the Dalai Lama. People come up and say, "Hello, Dalai," and I wrote the one to Ted Williams. You ever accidentally fart in a catcher's face? Those, and Fred wrote a lot. We both wrote all those showstoppers. We wrote every one of them,
Got it. As you mentioned in there, again, sorry for the spoilers, but there's so much interesting content that the Jackie puppet possibly inspired Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. I never thought about that, but that's true. What other mean puppet did we ever see?
There's lots of mean, most ventriloquist puppets they insult and they're wild. And Otto and George was like, they were like the craziest. But George, for the most part, insulted Otto, which was just so funny. And Otto was a drug addict, and George, his dummy, used to yell at him for being high. I mean, it was, talk about Billy West says it's Twilight Zone, but that was really Twilight Zone. And I don't think anybody's ever really gone back and matched up the dates, but Conan came on and the Jackie puppet attacked him just so violently. And it was so funny because Conan was supposedly getting thrown off the air, and he came on the show to try and save his show, and we threw him a goodbye party, which was just so rude. And the Jackie puppet attacked him, and we were thinking that he realized that the puppet can say things that nobody can say or really shouldn't say. And, you know, and those two ideas, for all I know, that Triumph, the Wonder Dog, had been around for years. So we'll never know, you know, unless somebody actually asks. You know, some things happen. You know, Richard Belzer got his part on Homicide because Barry Levinson was a Stern Show fan. And he heard Belzer and he said, yeah, I could use that guy, you know, so things happen like that, you know. So it's and it doesn't mean anything. It's just fun. You know, the idea of having a ventriloquist dummy is not too unique. You know, you can't say that was my idea to have a ventriloquist dummy, you know.
Senor Wences agrees with you, but
actually,
you mentioned Otto George, who I got to see many times at the brokerage here on Long Island. There's a rumor, and you're kind of a comedy historian, where if I go, Jackie, did this happen? You could go yes or no. Did Dice Clay steal the nursery rhymes from Otto and George?
I was not around at Pips, but I will tell you that it annoyed the piss out of me that made him famous, because I told all those nursery rhymes in 6th grade and 5th grade. Me and my gang knew all of those. So they had been around the block. So I'm sure Otto and George, maybe they were doing them, but whether Dice heard them from him or, you know, there's so much that's just out in the air. I mean, and once again, it's got nothing to do with the nursery rhymes. It's Dice. It's the guy.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, the average person can go up there, another comedian go up and do those, and they throw tomatoes at him. So, you know, the genius of a great character like Dice is knowing what to pick and what to use. And he's a genius at it, and he's great. And Otto was brilliant. People say, oh, you know, Dice used this character or that character. You know, everybody's influenced by 100 different things. You know, I laugh at myself. You know, I've always laughed at myself telling jokes. And then one night we're all sitting around in the Florida comic strip, and it was Red Skelton's 75th anniversary, his birthday. And all of a sudden he comes out to the microphone and he starts telling jokes and laughing at himself. And Bill McCarty turns to me and he says, Martling, that's you. And I said, well, I certainly didn't sit there and watch Red Skelton and say, you know what, I'm going to be the next Red Skelton. But I did watch him every Tuesday night for years. So who knows? It all seeps in. It all seeps in, and it finds its way out. You know, so everything comes from somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
So to kind of recap what I've heard so far, there's your podcast that you do with Peter Bales. By the way, does Peter still do the Balls Party of Two closer in his?
He will never stop doing that. He's such a wonderful guy. We have such a great. We've turned into the Smothers Brothers. I mean, we sit there and I just give him such a hard time. And we're getting more and more great people on. You know, we had, Vic DiPatetto, and we had John Peasy, and we had Julie Scotti, and we're getting more and more people because they're hearing about how much fun it is. You know, so that's really fun. And I still got my 516-922 wine joke line for 43 years, which is a whole nother, that's its own cable special. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm hoping that this really drums up a lot of interest, you know, because I got a lot of tales. I got a lot of great tales to tell, a lot to share. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there's the podcast, there's the hotline, there's this documentary, there's stand-up, which you're still doing very regularly. You pop up on other people's shows. You might have another book. What I'm getting at is, for anyone who does that guy's a has-been, you are busier than just about anyone in the limelight all these years later.
You just do what you do. You put one foot in front of the other, and then you look behind you and you see the mess that you made. You know, like my book was a long time coming, and I just kept writing it and asking and writing and asking. And by the time somebody finally said yes, I mean, I have a whole second book. People write to me and say, Jackie, man, did I love your joke book? I mean, did I love your autobiography? And I email them back the whole second half that wasn't published. And they go, that's better than the first half, you know, but I never published that yet. Maybe eventually, you know, if there's enough interest. You know, it's really fun. The whole Stump the Joke, man, that's a whole nother show. You know, there's you know, so I really appreciate you, how positive you are about this whole thing. And
Well, I've one more
we'll
question.
see what happens.
One more question, then I'll let you go. And this is a selfish thing. So I'm dialing in from Long Beach, Long Island, and there's not really a documented history of Long Island in terms of we know everything that happened the way that there is with other cities. But was there ever a comedy club or a notable thing related to stand-up that happened in Long Beach besides Billy Crystal being from here?
Me and my partner used to play at the Arizona, which was on Arizona Avenue. And we used to play at Wellington's, which is Island Park. And I think there was some comedy club down there. It wasn't too long, not a standalone comedy club, but there was one or two that were in different places, but it's too long ago to remember. I mean, way back then, before there was the East Side Comedy Club, I put on shows everywhere on Long Island. Me, my amplifier, my two speakers, I'd get a couple comedians and go into a bar and say, listen, let us have the Tuesday night or Wednesday night. And it was always great fun. Some of them lasted a week. Sometimes they lasted 3 months. And it was always fun and people loved it, and comedians, there were no comedy clubs. They didn't have anywhere to work.
Right.
They were so thrilled to come out from the city and make $50 and have a few drinks and maybe meet a girl. It was the Wild West. It was really fun. I just know we always had so much fun whenever we played in Long Beach because the girls down there were just wild and crazy. So, every time we went over that stupid bridge, it was like, here we go. Here we go.
Well, thank you for that insight. Thank you for the many years of great entertainment. Looking forward to what's to come, and congratulations.
I'll tell you one Long Beach story.
Please.
And I don't know if it was Long Beach High School. We used to do radio tours where if we're doing the Grammys, I say the Howard Stern show, Howard would do like the Grammys or the Oscars. And in a hotel, there'd be a big ballroom and there'd be a table, a circle of tables, and like Buffalo, New York would be here and Chicago would be here. So a celebrity could walk in and go from table to table,
right,
and tour the United States. And the first time we sat down with Rick Rubin, he sat down with us, this is like 1988, before Rick Rubin really was anywhere near. I think he had just started whatever Def Jam, or I'm not a rap guy, but he sat down at the table, and the very first thing he pointed at me and said, Jackie, I called 922 Wine every morning before high school in Long Beach, New York. So there's your Long Beach story. Now he's from there, right? Is it Long Beach or one of the 5 towns?
He was from Lido Beach, but for simplification purposes, you say Long Beach. But all this stuff happens around here, and nobody really documents it in a large way. Not even the town. So famous rappers have been from here, died, and they went to the city. Hey, we should have a street named after him. The city went, who? That's happened a few times. There's lots to be told. Lots to be told. Well, we're not done yet. This is Joke Man Part 1. Joke Man Part 1. Well, thank you for your time again. The many years of great art. I'm really glad to see it's not slowing down, and that it didn't end when you left Howard Stern like it did for a lot of your contemporaries. So maybe be ahead of
I will tell you though, people that are fans, I answer every single email I get. And I really do. And I get so many emails from people saying, I heard on the radio that you answer your emails. I don't believe it. And I do. So my email is jokeland@aol.com, JOKELAND@aol.com. And my website is jokeland.com. So if you can remember Jokeland, you can find me. And I really appreciate this interview. It's been wonderful. I can't wait to tell our PR woman, our PR girl, whatever you're allowed to say nowadays, Maggie Simpson. She's just been great. And I just found out the radio tour had to be extended a couple of days because everybody wants to talk. They don't want to talk about me. They want to ask about Howard, but that's fine with me because I got lots to say. You know what I'm saying?
Paltrocast.